Pop in, say hi. If you haven't come into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And Sunday nights, we try to keep it light. Sometimes, right? In my days, I go deep and it hasn't dissipated yet. So sometimes I come in here a little flighty, but it is in my intent that it's a good time, that we're spending time together, right? A crew that's kind of been hanging out for, oh my goodness, we have been together for 11 years now, some of us, and it has been an incredible experience. And it's an experience that I believe is just in the beginning of what that relationship, what this brand is going to entail in the coming decades. Yes, decades. Cindy's going. I set my goal for life at 114 years. So it's important for me to enjoy myself in that process. And part of enjoying myself is showing up here on Sundays and doing my very best to keep that light. And in saying that, hello, Owen. Hello, Owen. And in saying that, oh my goodness, was I in the topics today? It is kind of neat that I can kind of discover things today for the most part. And I don't always do this, but because I trust in that relationship that I have in Google, I know it's important that I trust in what is being suggested to me when it comes to content, that right, that appetizer platter that is set out to entice us, right, and entice us for uh enjoyment, adventure. Oh, here's a good one. It's education. And today I was actually in education a little bit. Trust me, I am not, well, I would have to say now I'm a studious person, right? But up until the past 10 years, I've only delved into topics that, I've been so compulsed about, that right, that part of my passions, my hobbies, not necessarily in that academic education, right? About as close as I can get to that is maybe history documentaries or listening to Lex Fridman in his interviews with bioscientists and numbers people and jungle people, I guess anthropologists, right? That I get to learn through these other people's experiences, and I think that's what it's about. I think we are, for the most part, right? Because sometimes we grow up, sometimes we have these lives that we think is monotonous, that we don't find interest in. We think we're boring, we think other people think we're boring, and so we don't search out those topics that catch our curiosity. It is important for me to move in that way with my curiosity. Like today, when some of these scientific documentaries or lectures, I would say they were more like lectures. Hello, Andrew. They were more like lectures. Um, I was in the topic of a lady, and I think she was a bioscientist, possibly. I didn't get, I don't want to mislabel her career, but she was very, very important in her field, and she made some major discoveries and was recognized in that. But one of the topics I was in today, I wrote it down because it was something I would never ever on my own go into, but because for some reason it was suggested to me, and I don't know why, because I don't think, you know how YouTube works. You take a look at one thing and then you get shown a gazillion of that same topic to choose from in that appetizer platter. Remember what I said about, right? Not gambling anymore, but there are YouTube creators that sit at slot machines and play slot machines. And I went in and watched one of those videos. And being a recovering gambling addict, that's not something I should be, right? I should be in, because these are the things that trip us up, that kind of give us this idea of, oh, we could try it one more time. You haven't gambled in years and years and years. You can't get addicted from, well, whether it's one cigarette, one drink, one more shot of heroin or fentanyl, or right? And then we find ourselves right back at square one, right? So the topic that came across my path today, and I'm not sure if anybody here, maybe Andrew, I would think you were super, super genius smart if you know this one without Googling. I was in the topic of diversity, and it wasn't the topic that came to the platter, but what did come to the platter was this topic of transposable elements. Have you ever heard of that, Andrew? Transposable elements. And I got in it and I was blown away by the fact that it had a connection to evolution. It had a connection to how we change, right? How animals change, how even plants change, because the whole topic was on the transmutable elements of a cob of corn. Not just any old cob of corn, but you know those carbacones, cobs of corn that they hang from the ceiling in the kitchens, and they're all different colors, right? Those are actually mutations, right? Those are shut off genes. Right. I'm not a scientist. I'm just from my own perspective. You'd have to go into the topic and kind of search it out yourself, but it was so interesting. Oh, good. Exactly. Even spelled transposable elements. And it was incredible. The lady who actually discovered, well, she didn't discover it. One of her students had discovered when they went on a field trip, and they had to break it down because transposable elements are in every creature in the world. And transposable elements, and actually the the exact element of that, mites, they could be shut off and turned on. So this is where we get our, what do you call that, when something becomes different, like a cob of corn actually looks different. And right, those, and it was, the topic was so interesting. And then I went into a couple of more, and all of them in connection to this topic that I love, right? Evolution, and how we do change. And it made me kind of think of, right? how we've changed over the course of thousands, millions of years. And we're going to stop 1 second and send out some good cheer. They're going really fast, so I'm assuming it's a scary one. Get to your destination, right? Knock on that door. Somebody will come to the door and say, "Oh, man, it was a false alarm, but we're okay now," right? And then they can turn around and go back to the station. You'll know it was a really scary one if we hear another truck or ambulance go by right away. Okay, so where was I? Oh, in the topics that I'm not even a scientist. These are not even topics that get me going in any way. And the only reason is once I was in, because it is free choice, right? I could have chosen to go into something else. I could have gone into a metal detecting video or a mindset video or some thought leader out there, you know, but I chose this video and I was in a little chain of scientific conversations and I found it enthralling. But this lady who discovered, or one of her students discovered, because it was part of the, oh no, she discovered it, that one of her students discovered the mites, which was the important part of the um, transposable elements. And after these few videos that I watched, I went, oh my goodness, like Cindy, you found that actually pretty interesting. By the end of the third one, I was washing dishes and listening to it. But for the first couple, I actually sat here and watched them and actually took them in as lessons. And it really gave me that insight to myself, that I could have been an amazing student, right? With a different upbringing, right? With a little bit different, what's that, authority in my life, somebody who would apply me to my seat and, right? Make me do my schoolwork. And when I came home, make me do my homework. School and homework for my parents never seemed like something that was important, right? Grow up, get a job. It was kind of that idea. But then again, they were busy in their own lives too. So it was in my own choice whether or not to be that good student. And if I had been that good student, I think my life would have been so different, right? I wouldn't have had time to be out and about and been picked on and bullied. I would have been, right, sitting at my desk applying myself to my studies. And I might have, right, really enjoyed it as much as I enjoy it now. But I found it really interesting. So I'm curious to see when I go back into my main pages whether these topics or something relatable to these topics will be offered up to me. And I'm curious to see, right? If it was just for that little span of the day today that I was going to be delving in and grab these insights for myself, or whether or not to, right, delve into something different, whether I'll actually make that choice to watch one of those. I don't know. They're pretty interesting, but they're pretty heavy too. That's professor stuff. That is, right. These are the guests that go on Lex Fridman's interviews, like the really smarty pants, right? And I'm nowhere's near that. But I think the lady actually explained it well. It wasn't actually the lady who had discovered it, because it was discovered in 1929. And it wasn't till the 1980s or the late 1990s that they actually discovered the mites, right? And it was one of her students, right, that actually put another group together to delve deeper into those topics. Now, I'm not sure whether or not when it comes to, oh, and epigenetics, and you guys hear me talk about epigenetics all the time. The epigenetics were all tied into that too, which I found to be super, super curious, right? But at the same time, I was kind of proud of myself that, because these are topics on the norm that just wouldn't even catch my attention. I wouldn't even be interested in them. But that's change, isn't it? And it is in my choices. And, someone younger, me, younger, these are topics that I had no interest in. In fact, probably I didn't have interest in them because I didn't even know they existed. I, right? I had no idea of possibilities my entire life. Right? Only those short goals, right? Those big goals in my eyes, right? That I could set my goals and work towards them, but only using that word of mine, despite knowing that I had every right to expand in my life the way that I wanted to pursue the things that I wanted to, right? So I have to keep it in mind that maybe I could stretch myself a little bit more. I'm not going to university. I am done with school. I was done with school when I started school, in all honesty, right? But I do love learning, right? Yeah, maybe Andrew, if you have a few minutes, you might want to take a look at that topic of transposable elements. But there was so many other topics of conversation. I mean, today was a long day. That was maybe 2 or 3 hours of content, right? But I was in a few topics, right? Um, um, Oh, you know what? I had insights when it comes to comedians. I was actually, right, happened on to a few comedians today that came across my path in those offerings. And I went in and I thought these people were very funny, but I'd never took into mind that funny could drive home important insights, right? Important truths, important topics. And the first thing that went to my mind, right? Because this is what these two comedians were doing. They were talking about control. One guy was talking about the control of the government, but he made it so funny, right? And then the other guy, he was talking about racism, and he was doing it so funny, but at the same time, I got the point, right? I suspect everybody in his audience got the point too. But they were able to do it in a light way. Sometimes, right, we don't want to be schooled, right? We don't want to be told what to do. We don't want somebody to say it's my way or the highway, or I know better than you. It's agitating, it's frustrating, it's right, it's stuff that you go, okay, I'm out of here, right? I got better things to do. But when the comedians do that, right, it's light. And when it's light, it's easy to absorb. I know that because it's what I try to do in what I do to get the topics across lightly, right? And maybe it hits, maybe it doesn't hit, right? But at the same time, it's light and still enjoyable. First thing that came to my mind was Robin Williams, the light that he had. And you could say, well, his points weren't heavy. Maybe not. But wasn't his death heavy? Right? It drove home points in that And it also made us recognize that, right? Just because he's a funny man, right? Just because he makes people laugh, it doesn't mean he's unintelligent or that he doesn't have moments that frustrate him or make him sad or make him feel depressed, right? And he gave so much in that, right? In his own passing, it really drove home. And I believe that a lot of people took care of their emotional and mental well-being after, right, that announcement that he had passed and how he had passed. Yeah, it was interesting. And then for the next part of the day, I was listing. Oh, look what I sold that. I listed this. It's a cedar. It's a cedar vase. I picked this up for I think $1.50 or $2. I sold it today. I think for 25 or $30. I can't remember. But she'll be coming to pick this up tomorrow. And yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. It's a tree, right? It's a cedar tree, and somebody made a vase out of it. And when I looked them up, they go for a lot of money, right? Over $100, right? I'm not a greedy grabber. When I look at it, I go, oh, vase, cute, right? And I'm happy. I'm making a good profit on it, I would say, right? If I paid $1.50 or $2, let's say $2 for that, I'm sure I only paid like $1.50 for it. I never usually bought things at my work that were more than a couple of dollars unless they were a necessity. Like my speakers. I went thrifting last night trying to find some things that I could sell online, right? And one thing to keep in mind is I needed speakers, and I wasn't sure if my speakers were broken for my computer. If my speakers for my computer were broken, my beautiful Bose speakers, or it was the way that I was hooking it up. So I bought another set of computer speakers, right? They're usually, if you go buy them at the store, they're usually $50 to $100 for a pair of speakers. I paid $6. I paid $6 for my speakers. You don't pay tax here in Canada for thrifted things. I don't know if you pay taxes in the States for thrifted items, but here in Canada, if you buy something thrifted, right? Secondhand, you don't have to pay tax on it. So $6 and a pair of speakers, and I brought them home, and I thought, oh, I love my Bose. So I took all the cords off these little speakers and I put them on my Bose, and my Bose speakers are done, right? Gonna give them to my nephew. If he can fix them, he can have them. It might be, I don't know what it is, why they don't work. I think I stepped on one of the cords and broke the prong. But I've got speakers for my computer today or now. So I'm really happy. I'm back online. My computer is awesome. I am so happy for my setup. A new computer, and with the speakers it cost me $56. I'm so happy about that. It's a problem that's resolved. I was working with my poopy computer that had no RAM left. Like had no RAM. It was crashing on me constantly. But I don't like, taking in lessons. I like my big screen. I don't like my little laptop screen. You guys know. And the speakers on this laptop is no better than the speakers that were on my big computer. So I'm happy I am back up and running. Better than ever. Oh, and I got another thing, you guys. These are really cute. The little ones were 50 cents, and the big one was $1. This is the big one, you guys. Look at that. Is that not cute? From the 1950s. Isn't that cool? And then that was the mom. They're kind of odd. They were made in Japan. Um, and then two little baby dogs. This one even actually looks like Japanese in the face. But they're hand painted, right? So when I checked them online, they go for about $60. These little ones were 50 cents each, and then the big one was $1. So I listed these for $30. And again, that's a really good profit for the pennies that I paid for them, right? Then on top of that, well, I went over some of my listings. I'm not listing on eBay. I did when I was selling fur coats on eBay. I used to list on eBay. I did very well in fur coats. I used to work from uh, when I would start selling fur coats in July, and I would sell coats right up until November. And I would make so much money, enough money that I could consider it my job. Uh, Now you can't get fur coats for those good prices that I was getting them at. I'd pick up a fur coat, right, for $6 or $7, and I would sell them for three, four, five, six, $700, right? And I was making good living at that. My sister, she still does eBay, but because of the tariffs, which are pretty much 40% for tariffs. So if you buy anything on eBay and you buy it from somebody here in Canada, when it gets to you in the mail, the post office is going to make you pay that duty on it, and it will be pretty much equal to what you paid for the item. So she switched over to Marketplace too. I've been doing really, really well on Marketplace. It's been keeping groceries in my cupboards. It's been helping me with my bills. I haven't really sold anything since Christmas. I got up today and I says, okay, Cindy, time to get back to work, right? Keep those funds going. If you're not going back to work, then you got to make sure that you can afford to pay your rent and your bills, and right, and put the groceries in the cupboard, right? And I'll go back to work if I have to, right? But it sure would be nice to say that, right? That I work because I want to. I'd like to say that I am technically, right, retired, but not retired. You guys know I'm never going to retire, but have somebody else put a paycheck in my bank account. If that were to happen, I would have to have my dream job, right? I would have to have my dream job. And yeah, I have a couple dream jobs in mind, but right, we'll see if they come to me in that process, right? Um, okay. Shushamine. This is a word, you guys. Anybody Jewish out there? There's a content creator that I follow. He's actually a professor. I think he lives in Prague, and he's a professor of psychology, and he's a expert on narcissism. And when he comes in to do his lives, he always says, okay, shusha means. And I don't know what that means. It's a Jewish term. I think it's a Jewish term because I think he is uh, Jewish. I don't quote me on that, but I'm thinking that possibly that he is Jewish. But he always says that, and it's always cute. But I wanted to know what that meant. And so I asked Google, and Google has no idea what I'm talking about. I spelt it in lots of different ways by the way I'm hearing it and again Googling it, and I still don't know what it means. Does anybody out there know what Shushamim means? If anybody's Jewish, I would love to know what it means. I've a few times now, a few days, when he says it, every time he says it, I go, okay, I got it now. And then I've also used the captions because the captions will translate what he's saying. And I've even used it that way. And still, I don't know what it means. Okay, let me come in and say a hi. See who's here. Oh, Kathy's here. Hi, Kathy. Um, yeah, I'm glad I got you on that one, Andrew. But yeah, check it out. It was super interesting for sure. If I understood it, you understood it, you'll understand it too. I found it really, really interesting. I think she was uh maybe a professor or something, and she was doing a lecture, and they were filming her presentation in that. And yeah, it was super. I love learning different things. I have my topics that I move towards in you thinking that one day I'm going to be an absolute expert on them. But oh my goodness, I learn new things every single day. And you guys know me going down the side branches quite often, I do pick up new topics of interest. Recently, Bothies, right, in Scotland, these old houses, old stone houses, and these beautiful, stunning landscapes. Oh my goodness, you guys should watch some of those videos. Bothies, Bothys, and just punch that in, and you'll find there's lots of adventures in Scotland and in Wales that do these little adventures. They walk the trails and show the beautiful landscapes, and then they stay in these old houses that were when they were clearing the clans, right? And they just left the stone houses there. And I guess the governments, they actually have like park rangers and stuff that come in and clean them and do repairs on these houses. And people can actually walk the trails, and they can stay there, right? In these bothies. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what I want to do. My first trip to the other side of the world. I think I would like to go to Scotland. It was a dream when I was a teenager. It was right after school. I thought, "Oh, I'm going to go to Scotland." Not thinking about money or anything, but money really, when I was a teenager, it really wasn't a concern for me because, in comparison to most kids in my school, I had a lot of money. And I think, for any friends that I had in my seniors year, the fact that I did have a few dollars, all earned on my own, right? That, maybe those friendships that I had maybe weren't as solid as I maybe had hoped that they were. Lots of us get taken advantage of in our relationships, and sometimes we end up realizing that people really never liked us from the very start, right? Sometimes we can go our whole lives thinking we have people who care for us, just to find out that they don't. And it is heartbreaking, right? And in the beginning, it's kind of difficult to get, right? Because that's not the way we are. But then you got to think, in our moments of desperation, when the strings are dangling and that little piece of assistance or help or money or whatever it is dangling there, and you're in that desperate situation, right? We'll make those grabs. I've done that. Oh my goodness, so many times. My sister Tracy was my rescuer, you know. as an adult, uh, she always offered, and right, who was I in need to say no? That really would not have been taking care of myself in that in any way. But in the end, also, right, it wasn't the fact that I didn't care for my sister. It was the fact that that was the help. That was what I desperately needed in the moment. And when it's there, when it's being offered, who is any of us to say no, right? This is the way that I believe. I love kindnesses, and the kindnesses kind of wake us up to the people that we surround ourselves with, right? So that we can know who our allies are, who our friends are, who are the people who love us, and the people who care for us, right? Okay, let me have a sip. I'm in the root beer, you guys. I've been craving pop, and I gave up pop, I think, for 3 months. Um, I didn't feel any better. Um, but I mean, pop has got a lot of chemicals and stuff in it too, and so I gave up the pop. And the past week, I was craving pop like a mad woman. I think basically it was because I was dehydrated. Remember what I said last week, that I actually had my first Charlie horses since I quit my job last week, and it made me recognize that I needed to take in more fluids. And I think the idea of the pop, it's only mental, right? It's obviously not, well, this is caffeine. That's why it's root beer, right? I took the root beer because it's caffeine free. But at the same time, it's not really hydrating and it's not really good. But if I just consider it as a treat, or like I said when I came in today, that sometimes you can say, "Oh, just one root beer, just one glass of root beer, Cindy," and then the next thing you know, you're on it again, right? Yeah, just like those silly, and I find them fascinating. I find them fun. It's when you have a heavy day and stuff, and you just want something brainless, that I have sat here and just watched one after another, and it's not healthy for me. And I know too that it's gonna, at one point, if I don't stop it, and I stopped it for a long time. I made sure I said, don't suggest this to me, and they didn't. But the moment you hit that button, like I said, they'll start suggesting content like that to you. So I've been really, really careful, right? That I'm not hitting those buttons on the computer to watch those, because I don't even want them to be suggested to me, right? And I don't even know if that's a good idea, because I should be able to be around it without it drawing me back into it, right? It's like when you quit smoking, it's not like your family quit smoking or your friends quit smoking. What are you supposed to do? Give up your friends and family because they're smokers, right? And lots of people do that, but you should be able to be around cigarette smoke without it driving you to want to have a cigarette, right? Or maybe it could drive you to want to have a cigarette, but to drive you to have a cigarette. Okay, you guys, let me know how your week's been going. I'm coming in the comments now. I'm going to go right down to the bottom. And then, oh, Eugene's here too. Hello, Eugene. I hope your night is going good. Thank you so much. I know you gave me the thumbs up there, Eugene. I always appreciate it. So I'm going to watch Paul the Rail. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah. Eugene is a fan of trains, like Nancy is. Nancy likes the trains. He might even be a friend of Nancy. I know Nancy has sent quite a few of her friends over to check my channel out. You know, Nancy has been very kind to me over the years, and she's not always able to come into my live shows and stuff, though she does watch them on her phone or some app where she doesn't get commercials and stuff, because she commercials drive Nancy absolutely bonkers. Right? But yeah, next time I talk to Nancy, I'll ask her if she knows Eugene, if Eugene's actually one of her crew. um oh, you like root beer? Do you have A&W root beer in the States? Um, Andrew, let me know, because I would love for you to try A&W root beer. I believe A&W is a Canadian fast food restaurant, but their root beer is famous, and oh, I don't have it. I don't have it around me. I just have my glass. Sometimes I bring the 2 liter. If I'm drinking it really fast, I'll bring it and I'll just set it on the floor in the window where it's nice and cold. But no, I just have a glass of root beer here. But A&W root beer, I love A&W A&W root beer. But right, maybe I could find a way to send you a case of A&W root beer, knowing that you love root beer, Andrew. I'll send you a case of A&W root beer, right? We'll see if it gets to you without all the cans exploding. But I could put the root beer in another box too. But we have to see what the weight is like. And if they charge you $40, that's the thing. I can't send anything into the States, because whatever I send to the States, the person in the States is going to have to pay the same amount of the value of that item that I send. And you know, I mean, a case of pop is only $6, but the shipping in that case of pop, because a case of pop is super heavy, and the fact that you have to pay that uh, tariffs. Is it tariffs? Yes, the tariff war. they President Trump, he took the tariffs off the ground beef, but I am still waiting for that killer sale, right? I'm still waiting on that killer sale for the ground beef. And he did that like 2 months ago. Things are really moving slowly. He took the tariffs off something else too. Root beer. Oh, not root beer. Hamburger. Oh, and the coffee. Yeah, the price of coffee has not come down significantly yet, but the sales are much better. So I can now get my coffee again at those really good sale prices that I used to be able to get. But it's not all the time, but it's a start, right? We're in a horrid recession now. Even our dollar store, there's nothing a dollar, not one item in the dollar store is there anything for a dollar. Right? But we some things we have a say in, some things we don't have a say in. Sometimes we can have a say, but they not listening, right? And yeah, majority rules. I think if we all made a big stink about it, that it would have to get a little bit better. It would have to. I was watching a video, and they were saying, and I don't know what it was, but they said there's enough food in this world to feed everybody. There really is. And look how many people are actually starving right now. Right? It's really kind of eye-opening to recognize, because you know, even being low income, uh I'm in Canada, and a low income in consideration to some of these third world countries, I'm living like a queen. Who what right do I have to complain about my miseries and right? Because it could be worse. It's in that appreciation. It's like when your mom said when you're eating dinner, Cindy, eat your mashed carrots and turnips. Somebody in Africa is it doesn't have any food at all, right? Then you'd have to sit there and stare at that orange big pile of mash there, and you'd have to find a way to get it down. So many times I would have be I'd be left at the table, right? Because you couldn't leave the table without finishing your plate. And I would be sleeping, literally sleeping in my plate of food, right? But that's just one upbringing, right? Lots of us have uh, familial, right? Family rules and family traditions, and some might think that's odd, and some people might think, oh, well, yeah, right? Eat everything off your plate. There are people out there who don't have food, and you should be appreciative for the little that you have, considering that there are people who even have less. So it's all in perspectives, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that's neat to know that you like root beer, Andrew. My favorite pop is black cherry, maybe, or grape. Yeah. Yeah. I don't drink pop very often. Like I said, this week I had an absolute craving that was not going away. Pop was on sale, so I picked up my root beer. The only thing about root beer is I don't know why, but there's not enough bubbly in root beer. Root beer seems a little bit flatter when it comes to pop. I kind of like those bubbles going off in the back of your throat and stuff, right? But yeah, root beer kind of goes flat when you open up the bottle. You have to pretty much drink it all right away because it's just not pleasant when it's all flat. Oh, you do have NW organic, yeah. It's too sweet for me. I've tried those root beers, but they're made with cane, right? And they're so sweet. I don't know if you guys remember Watkins. It was a spice company. It was one of those place entrepreneurs. They would like door to door salesmen, and they would come in with the Watkin products, and they would knock on the door and try and sell you spices and flavorings and stuff. And you could actually get a root beer, like you can get vanilla extract and almond extract, but you could get root beer extract. Watkins used to sell root beer extract. And my mom would have these great big root beer jugs, not pop bottles, but they're like jugs, like big jugs with a little hole there, right, to lift it up. And it would hold, oh my goodness, 5 gallons. They were huge. They would hold a lot of root beer. And my mother made homemade root beer. And we really didn't know the difference. And we were always excited when my mom made root beer. We really enjoyed that root beer. But you guys know that my dad was big on road trips. We were in the States all the time. And in the States, you guys have an amazing root beer too. Shasta. Oh my goodness. Right. And you also have a pop that we don't have here in Canada, strawberry pop. I think they call it strawberry pop. But I remember that, you can't get that pop here in Canada, right? It's not popular, right? It's exactly the same in Europe. They don't like root beer. They say root beer tastes like toothpaste. Yeah, they don't like root beer in Europe. But yeah, here in Canada, we love our root beer. Okay, coming down in the comments. Andrew says, I enjoy drinks. I like that bite from the carbonation along with the taste, but I only drink soft drinks once in a while. Yeah, this is going to be the last of the pop for me for a while. I have to be, understanding that I could be back on the pop, just like what I was saying about those gambling um what slot machine videos that people post, right? That could trigger me, right? A really bad day, a sad day, a day full of stress, you know, what kind of decisions do you make in that, right? And sometimes we're so sad we just, I don't care, right? Life is over. We just delve into our habits that are not good for us, and that's what self-sabotage is, right? That's what self-sabotage is. um just recently on YouTube, I watched a documentary, Born Rich, made by Jamie Johnson of the Johnson and Johnson Company. It's about young people who were born into enormously wealthy families. Yeah, that's another thing. You have to take a look at those kids. A lot of those kids struggle because, well, if the parents are rich, it's because the parents are successful, right? And so those kids chase the tails of their parents' success, and lots of times those kids are privileged in a way where they don't even have to work unless they want to. So they end up having social, well, maybe not social issues, well, maybe social issues, because right, they have lots of money, they could do whatever they want, so they're traveling and hanging out with their friends and going to bars, and it's like Will Smith's kids. He's got two children who are very, very well known, right? Jada Smith and Will Smith. And both of them in their own rights are doing very, 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 very well. But that's because they put the work into it. They're not relying on their parents' money, but they are kind of relying on, when they started, on their their parents' fame, right? Used it as a stepping stool. But in the end, right, you only succeed in your own merit, right? And yeah, so I think that's pretty interesting because it's not the norm, isn't it? It's lots of times these kids from really, really rich people, they end up being drug addicts, or people who are just living frivolously and not giving back to the world. Um, there was another one whose parents were one of the richest people in the entire world, and she became a real party girl in the 80s and 90s. I can't remember her name. Tall, skinny, blonde hair. She had a television show. She used to go to all the red carpets out there. Oh, I'm just trying to remember what her name was. She was actually the only daughter of a Mogul. What do you call that? Yes, thank you. Oh, Andrew, you're so smart. I'm just so grateful that you hang out with me, Andrew. I'd be like, da, da, da. Paris Hilton, right? Do you remember her dad? Her dad was named? He was some big Hollywood mogul or something, or television mogul. I think he did television shows, and he was a big mogul. And she ended up not having a career except by being, a party girl, right? But right now, she is doing so well. She has a couple of children now. She married a socialite. She's very well to do, but she was well to do in her own merit too. Like, she had lots of money because obviously being in the limelight, right? Like Kim Kardashian not really having any skills at all, right? That being in that position that you can actually make money just on being able to market yourself properly, right? But yeah, wow, I didn't give you many clues with that one, Andrew, and you got it right. You got it right away. I'm not very good with names, and I know I shouldn't say I'm not very good at things because that's just compounding the idea that I'm not knowledgeable in those aspects, and then right it just becomes compounded and I just stay that way. But it is true. I was always terrible with phone numbers. uh the only reason I know my own phone number is like you have to fill out forms and stuff, and I've done it so many times that I've been able to memorize my own phone number. But for the most part, we live in the age of AI learning, so having to remember somebody's phone number isn't really relevant anymore, is it? Isn't that neat? What do you think of this idea, Andrew, of the fact that we're not going to be writing anymore, that it will all be in voice going forward? I'm not saying going forward as of this moment, but I suspect at some point that it's going to be not necessary to write, right? It's writing will be something for the artist, right? For the people, right? It's just like the people who cook. They cook because they love to cook, whereas other people they just go to a different restaurant every night, right? But yeah, be interested. Some people are professional celebrities. Children in wealthy families need to be taught how to handle wealth, and that it doesn't make them better, and it doesn't make them better for others. Uh, I would also add to that, Andrew, that children of wealthy families and wealthy families in general should also look at ways to give back in having that privilege of being wealthy. I'm not quite sure what Paris Hilton does in giving back. Most celebrities being super wealthy do have charities, right? They do have charities and they do fundraising and a lot of um, shows and things. Lots of times, if the beneficiary of the funds that are coming in from these programs will go to charities, quite often people will do that. I was actually uh, saw a post today that Ken Reeves, and I know there's another actor who does that. Maybe somebody out in the audience here knows who it is. Ken Reeves opened up a restaurant for homeless people so that they can eat for free. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? But I know another actor recently did that too, and I can't remember who that person was. Maybe one of you would know. Um, the hallmark of aristocracy is service. One of the Bouvlers said, "Perfect," right? And that's true because we all get what we give. I mean, not saying like I give you a dime and you give me a dime back, but you get what you give in respect, right? If I give you a dime, maybe you'll give me a couple of pieces of bubble gum out of your package of gum, right? It's you get what you give in life. It's kind of like I open the door for somebody, right? And I go to the store and I'm short a quarter, right? And that quarter is miraculously given to me by the person who's next in line, right? And I'm a big believer. One kindness deserves another. Okay. Um oh, come down, come down. Okay, there we go. Cindy got all the way down to the bottom of the comments. Owen, how are you doing tonight? You're quiet tonight. You're usually not this quiet. I hope you're doing okay. I hope your mom's doing okay, Owen, right? Um, but yeah, I hope everybody's life is going okay. We're in 2026 right now, right? And it's been kind of slow on my end. I don't feel that frantic hurry scurry. I was actually telling my sister, like, oh my goodness, I don't even work and I'm all caught up on my bills, right? I got a few groceries in the cupboard. I got a new computer. I didn't get a new computer, but I got a good working computer, and that's what's most important. And I got a good working pair of speakers, which makes me so happy, right? Because I did have a computer that did work well, but the sound was actually coming from the computer and it was awful. Oh my good. It was really, really bad. I was really missing my speakers. So I'm so glad that I got a new pair of speakers. And they only cost me $6. So I was absolutely thrilled. And they work excellent. They work really, really good. Right. So yeah, even for me, the beginning of 2026 is much better than the beginning of 2025. I remember the beginning of 2025 and setting my goals and wondering how I was going to accomplish it. And, already having problems at work, right? Because, my boss was off a leave and she was back at work, and it was a really, really difficult time for me at that time. And I remember that I was stressing, that I really felt bad, that guilt and shame for feeling the way I did, that little bit of sadness because I knew that I had to find a way to, right, move on from the job that I loved, right? I loved my job. And things work out the way they work out. But here I am. 11 months later, 10 months. 10 months, you guys, right? And no income, right? I'm not applying for assistance, nothing. We're just going to get through. We're just going to manage to get through this year. I've been reselling, and the few things that I've been selling have been managing to help me pay the bills, managing to help me keep groceries in the cupboard. And 2026, you guys, it's already starting good. And I'm wishing the same for everybody, that the hairy, scary, the sadnesses, the ailments, the illnesses, right? The money problems, the aching legs, right? That everybody gets a little bit of rest, that everybody physically is doing well, so that that you can manage to get things done, and physically well, so that the people who are caring for you can have a little bit of joy for themselves too, a little bit of peace and quiet, and not begrudging in the caregivers in any way. But I also know that the caregivers, right, they give more than they get, right? And we were just talking about getting what you give. And quite often, right, whatever caregiver gets, they usually throw it right back out there and they spread it out again. But Ken Reeves, does anybody know who that other the other person is from the States, and he's opened up a restaurant for the homeless in the States. But Ken Reeves opened one up here. Oh, here's a good one, you guys. Did you guys know that Alice Cooper, is it Alice Cooper? Try to think. Alice Cooper? I think it was Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper owns the O in Hollywood. And the Hollywood sign was really, really in bad shape. And Alice Cooper inquired about how much it would cost to replace the letters in Hollywood on the Hollywood Mountain there, and he was told there would be $29,000, and his friend had just passed away, somebody, a musician that he cared for, and so he wanted to buy the O uh, in in memory of his friend. And so he bought the O. And then when other celebrities found out that, another celebrity had bought a letter, then all the other big rich people, right? You were talking about um, service, Andrew, right? That even service to a city, right? And all those letters got replaced by different stars. Now, I can't remember who the other stars were. He did mention a few of them, but he actually owns the letter. So I don't know in the will who's going to pass it down to, but he should pass that letter down to somebody, whether he donates it to the city, right? Donates it to Hollywood, or he donates it to one of his children to hold in trust, right? That to have a little bit of control over something that you purchased, I would guess, right? But yeah, I found that super interesting. Um, okay, Andrew says the way some people are with guns, you can have my fountain pen when you pry it out of my cold, dead fingers. Oh my goodness. Right? You should actually, Andrew, have a little box and keep those favorite things that you want to take with you, right? That you want to take with you. And just leave a note on that so that, right, it can be added, right? And you can take them with you, right? If they mean important things for you. I still have this idea that I want to make my own tomb, right? I want a great big concrete hole in the ground with four walls, right? A big slab of concrete right on top, and then in the corner a little open space. And then over the years, I get to add all my favorite things, right, in my own tomb. And then when I know it's close, that I go down there myself into that tomb and seal up that little hole that I crawled into, whether it's a slab of concrete that I seal by pulling a rope that I can't push that concrete piece up, because you will panic once the air is gone, right? We naturally, it's just built into us to want to survive, right? But if it was close to the end, that would be amazing, right? And then maybe some of those things, like my DNA, would survive, right? And some of my favorite things might become antiquities in some museum 100,000 years from now, because they survived whatever catastrophe happened. Oh, that was another one too that I was into, right? I was reading what was going on with Mount St. Helens, right? And oh my goodness, I watch those documentaries and it's so sad and it makes you nervous because Mount St. Helens is so close, isn't it, to anywheres where we live in North America. The last time Mount St. Helens erupted, I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Mount St. Helens is not far at all. And I remember 1980, and it must have been close to the summer, right? Late spring, maybe. I think it was May, actually, if I'm thinking correctly, that it blew in May. But you guys, it was like fog. It was like fog in Vancouver where I lived, right? And we were still hours away from Mount St. Helens. And I remember that smoke and that dust. It was absolutely everywhere. As you wake up in the morning and right, we had to go clean dad's windows on his car and stuff because that ash was just settling just absolutely everywheres. But yeah, I was in the documentaries on right. Lots of time. I would have totally forgotten about watching that documentary today. Oh, give me 1 second, you guys. I just got two messages, I think, from the same person on my messenger. So I'm just gonna double check to see what it is. I can answer them later if it's not important. I'm just gonna take a look here. Oh, my blinds. Okay. Looks like I sold something else, you guys. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that while we were here. Um 25. I was 30. Yeah. I was I actually originally had them up for $50 and I dropped it to $40. Then I dropped it to 30. He just asked me if I would give it to him for 25. So, right. I think I paid $5 for them, but $25 is $25, right? Keeps food in the cupboards and the bills paid. It makes me happy. Cindy, the entrepreneur. If we can manage to go, how many more months do I gotta go until my pension kicks in? 10 more months, you guys. 10 months. We'll see if we can manage for 10 months without Cindy having to go. I'm not adverse to going to work, you guys. I really am not. But in my experiences, I really want to love the job that I do. And, I could put some applications out there in jobs that I might find are pleasant, but they're not dream jobs, right? They're not a job that I would want to do for years and years. They would just be a paycheck, right? In the moment, it seems like I'm doing okay making that paycheck on my own, right? I am my own boss and I kind of like that. And I credit I credit my sister uh, for for Alice, right? My sister Alice, who is truly an entrepreneur. She put a roof over her family's head, her husband and her two kids. She did that for 20 years, and she did so well. And when it comes to some categories in being an eBay seller, like she loves jewelry, like my sister is an expert on jewelry. She can get such great scores. She's got bracelets up that she picked up for $50 because they were sterling, so you have to pay for the value of the silver, right? But she's got them up for like $2,000, right? She picked up a Swarovski necklace that was worth $10,000, and she picked it up for 59. She picked it up for $59. She's got it listed right now. Yeah, I should leave her link in my description below. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow as a little project. You could, if you felt like you wanted to go in and check out what she's got for sale. A lot of that stuff, like I said, me and her teamed up for a couple of years. And we were going thrifting all the time, but my sisters have been struggling with health issues as of recently, all three of them, and and we just haven't managed to get out. Right, everybody is just working on their own priorities. That's what it is. They're working on their own priorities in the moment. That's not to say we're not going to be back at work. Like I said, I went out yesterday and I grabbed those couple of scores, but wasn't that good? This cost me $2 and I put it up for $30, right? And they go for anywheres from 50 to $100 for the set, and they're rare. These ones are rare, and these ones are in perfect shape, where the other ones who were asking like 50 or $60, they had cracks and chip in the paint and stuff. Mine are perfect. Mine are in perfect shape. So I suspect they're going to go right away, right? I don't have much, but I also understand when you work with marketplace, you've always got to be listing, and your sales come from, you listing, and your sales aren't coming from the items that you're listing in the moment. It's just Facebook Marketplace knows you're posting, you're listing, so they just make you more visible to the public, right? It's it's what do you call that? It's just the way the algorithm works, right? That's it's their setup. But I certainly noticed it because I haven't listed anything since Christmas. I took the Christmas off, and plus I was running low on stock. I'm having a hard time with giving up on my lovelies for the most part. Everything you see behind me, these are some of my special things that I love. I'm not again opposed. I'm not a hoarder in any way, right? But if I can hold on to some of the things that I do love, I would like to do that. So that means I have to replenish stock, right? And stock is just items that other people like, not necessarily items. If I can make money on it, I'll sell it. That's the way my sister works. That's the way I work. And I learned a lot off of my sister Alice in that process of reselling. And actually, she was the one that helped me set up when I was selling fur coats, and I sold fur coats for years, right? And it's only as of recently, I think there was a couple of movie stars that made fur coats really, really popular. And so the value when you go to the store to buy them ended up being more expensive. So now you can't get a fur coat for less than 70, 80. Those are cheap ones, right? The ones that are worth money are the box ones or the chinchilla ones. I never found, not once did I ever find a chinchilla coat. I always kept my eye open for a chinchilla coat because those things you could just sell for thousands of dollars and sell them really, really fast. But the box coats, especially the vintage ones, the leather ones with the fox cuffs, the fox trim on the bottom of them, the long leather ones, the fight jackets. Oh, and the fight jackets, I sold fight jackets too, which are like that Brad Pitt movie. That's why they called fight jackets, because in that movie he kept wearing these vintage leather jackets, and I did really, really well in those. I used to be able to, even after fur coats got expensive, I was able to do fight jackets for 5, 6, $10 sometimes, and I would still make a couple of $100 off of those, right? And I could sell those fast. So the more of those jackets that I had, the better I would do. This year coming up, I think I would like to get back into jackets, but I think I would like to do the Inuit coats. Being here in Manitoba, there are lots of vintage Inuit coats. They sell really, really, really well. But I have this organization across the streets from me, where I shouldn't say Eskimo because that's not the proper way to the Inuit, right? You have to say Inuit. Eskimo, they don't like to be called Eskimo because Eskimo means people who eat raw fish, and they find that disrespectful and offensive. So they want to be called Inuit. And but I have an organization across the street, and it's one of those convalescent homes where people, they come from up north and then they stay here, and they go to the hospital and they stay in these apartments across the street, and so that they can do all their follow-up checkups and stuff, right, post-ops. And I think I could probably swing a deal with, maybe, or at least get the word out that somebody in teaming up, in partnering, that I would be able to hook up with some really, really amazing, beautiful coats, and not something scraggly from a thrift store, but something that somebody actually took some pride in making, right? And these coats are beautiful, right? Even papooses. I bet you papooses would sell really, really well. Is that what you call them? The beds that the mothers would strap on themselves, and then they would put their baby inside so that they can work out in the field, or right, and have their baby with them all the time. Yeah, so I bet you I could do really, really well. But right, ideas are everywhere's, right? I have a gazillion. Everybody has a gazillion ideas. It's just a matter of whether you want to put the action into making those ideas happen. But I would much prefer to do something like that rather than going to work for somebody else that, right, might not treat me well, right? My bad experiences have kind of turned me off, right? I didn't recognize that it might not have been me. Oh, or should I say, I do recognize that it was partially me, because I worked so hard. I took so much pride in my work that, this idea, being sensitive, that knowing that how I felt about myself was reflected in the eyes of other people, that I tried to be the very best at what I did. And sometimes you can go too far with that, and even though it wasn't my intention was just to keep my job, just to keep my customers happy, and just to keep my boss happy. But sometimes when you do that, um, you're stepping on toes. You're showing your peers and your bosses up. And, in my life, there's always been a lot of jealousy and resentment. And I didn't recognize where that was coming from, right? I just thought it was unfair, untrue, nasty. And it wasn't true. It was just because you're making somebody else feel bad about what they're contributing to the table. And I didn't recognize that I did that. I recognize that. I recognize that now, but I'm not even sure if I can control myself, because I can't make myself small. It's not in my makeup. It's not in my mentality. It's not in my upbringing and in those limiting beliefs that I have. I still chase my tail, you know, to be the best at whatever I do. So I try real hard just to be me. Right? I still get better in what I do, but it's not in that idea of rubbing it in other people's faces. And not like I intended to do that, but that's how it was perceived, right? In somebody else's limitations. And it makes me understand now I might have been chased out of my positions, right? Um, uh, Surprisingly, uh, being fired was not something that was familiar to me. I have lost my jobs because, right, the boss didn't care for me. But I think, in the end, and knowing that that boss didn't care for me and that they were trying to get me out, it just made me a little bit more um, anxious to get out of there myself, right? And in that self sabotage, right, you end up unemployed and for no fault of my own, except for the fact that I didn't recognize that maybe I might have been showing others up. But I wasn't showing others up to make them look bad, like I said. I was only showing them up because I was trying to keep my job, right? That I was trying to do a good job for my customers, and I was trying to do a good job for the team, and I was right, the company that I was working for. And it was just perceived in a way that it wasn't meant. But that's on me. That's on me too, because, you know, in my own lack of self belief, right? That sometimes uh, I did work myself to the bone, right? And again, sometimes you don't recognize your part in somebody else's not feeling worthy, and I recognize that now, right? But I didn't recognize, uh, except my own moments of contemplating this situation, and if I was going to go back to work, what kind of job would I want? What would I do differently? And this is the idea. This is what I did when I was in school, right? Because I went to so many elementary schools, like 11 elementary schools growing up, that, every time my dad picked us up and took us to another town or another city, or I went to another school, that I would learn from the mistakes, or I think that I would learn from the mistakes of the school that I was leaving, and I would try and do better, right? I would use it as an opportunity. I had to go to a new school anyway. I didn't have any choice in that. My parents made those decisions. We were just dragged along for that journey, right? But, I always tried to do better from one school to the next, just in a way to fit in, right? Not recognizing that sometimes some people, no matter what they do, they don't ever fit in. It is a truth, though, you guys, right? Because again, when we show somebody up, that jealousy and resentment will come to the surface, and that jealousy and resentment will try to take you out for showing somebody, right, not well. That's true. That was a very recent lesson of mine. I think I only learned that a couple of months ago, you guys, right? 64 years old, and I'm just learning. I just learned that a few months ago. Right, I never thought of it in that way, but I should have recognized that, because lots of times, especially in that last job that I had that I loved so much, I took so much pride. I took so much pride in that. I was right. I was so into that shining in that job, and of course I'm in the lessons too. So it's again that service that that I should have known, right? I should have known. Customers would come in and go. I'd be in the back or something, and they'd be saying, "Where's the manager? I want to speak to the manager." The lady with the pink blonde hair. Just like, oh my goodness. And right, my manager would hear that quite often, right? And so I could imagine how that would make her feel in the position that she had. But she was a backroom lady. Like, she didn't work with the customers. She didn't work the whole the whole time, and I worked with her for years. She never took care of the customers up at the till, right? She just wasn't a customer. She wasn't relatable that way, but she was a hard worker, right? She worked in the back room, and my customers didn't see her, so they didn't know that, right, that anybody else other than me was a manager there. And I wasn't even the manager. I didn't even want to be the manager. I was actually the assistant manager for 3 months, and I just, right, in the three we I had to sign a contract at the end of the 3 months. I had 90 days to decide whether or not I wanted to keep the job, but there was no way that I could have stayed and helped her out as assistant manager. I just didn't have it in me, right? I don't know why I got into that conversation, but I did. Oh my goodness, it's after 9 o'clock. I haven't even stopped talking yet at all. Good. Did I take a breath? Okay, so before we go away, let's just come in here and just say our goodbyes and see if I missed out on any of the last comments here. Oh, I did have the right month, the very least. I didn't know the date. Mount St. Helens erupted on May 18th on my birthday. A friend lived nearby wrote to me about the ash settling on Spokane. Yeah, that was pretty big. When it comes to North America, that was huge. The last time that volcano erupted, I think it was 1,500 years ago. It wasn't that long ago, right? Um, so it could possibly happen again, but that was a pretty big release. I don't know how many hectares was destroyed. I know gratefully that it wasn't a lot of lives lost because they had an opportunity to evacuate quite a few. I know there were some scientists on another mountain across the way from the volcano that died because they weren't even far away enough from that volcano. I was watching that documentary today, and the whole side of the mountain, it was like it melted like a candle, instant, like, or even like it was hot outside, and the whole side of the wedding cake just kind of melted off the side of the wedding cake. And then the next thing you know was the big spew of smoke that came out of the top of the mountain. Yeah, that was crazy. But that was a big event for North America in history. And this age of AI learning, I know it was like TV, but wow, we got that on video. And moving forward now, these disasters can be properly recorded and properly studied so that maybe we can resolve or find ways to alleviate the pressure on these systems so catastrophe doesn't happen. It changed the landscape. But when it came to deaths, I'm not sure. I don't think very many people died in that. Maybe from the ash and the smoke if you had respiratory issues. I don't know the effects of cancer, if something like that uh, had effects and contributed, because we know about chemicals and stuff, right? Parkinson's disease. They're pretty sure now that it's caused by pollution and chemicals, right? And the there were a few great discoveries in Alzheimer's. Even this year, there was a big discovery in Alzheimer's. I can't remember what it was. Oh, they reversed Alzheimer's in mice. They haven't done the tests, on humans, but I did see some article that they were able to cure Alzheimer's in mice. I think that's pretty cool, right? I'm excited to see what goes on in our future. We're always getting bigger and smarter and hopefully safer, right? In this world. Yeah, it's going to be in our choices, you guys. Okay, you guys, that's it for tonight. I'm going to, I think I'm done pretty much with the heavy content tonight. I think maybe I'll just do a couple of metal detecting videos and keep it light, get some fresh air, open up my window a little bit, get some fresh air, make myself a fresh cup of coffee because my tea is cold now. I think I've had enough pop for the day. I had naan for dinner, but I made them naan. It's like Indian bread, but I put teriyaki sauce on it and cream cheese, and I roasted garlics in the oven. It was so good. I've never had actual roasted garlics before. I just saw a YouTube video. I was like, oh, I'm going to buy some garlic and I'm going to roast it in the oven and would spread it on toast. But instead, I spread it on the naan bread, and then I added the teriyaki sauce and the vegetables and the banana peppers, and oh, it was so good. And I put some cheese on it, and they were like two mini pizzas. Made two of them, two pieces of naan. But that was a great supper. I'm gonna have that one again. Yeah. Okay, you guys. That's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow with What's My Good Cheer if you want to come and hang out with me, 9 p.m. Central. If not, I'll be back on Sunday, you guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming in and hanging out with me. I hope I'm going to message Owen. Make sure he's doing okay, right? Sometimes we have our quiet days, right? That we're not over involved in what we're doing. But I appreciate that support that he always comes in and hangs out with us. I hope everybody has a good week, that everybody is healthy, right? And everything's running smoothly and maybe even getting a little bit better than what it was in 2025. Okay, you guys, have a great night. See you next week.